Hello, welcome back to the Employee to Boss podcast. My name is Haley Hayhurst and I am your host. I am so excited for you to listen to today's episode. Episodes like this are really the reason that I started the Employee to Boss podcast. I started this with the intention to help other people feel inspired to start their businesses, to feel like it is actually a potential for them, because when we're in our corporate 9-to-5s or have a sustainable paycheck, it can be really hard to just walk away from that to follow your dreams and start your side hustle or your business. So that is why I have energetics and mindset coach Mallory Meyer on the podcast today. Mal came from a corporate career where she was an HR professional, and her road to entrepreneurship was not a quick one, but she always felt a calling for something bigger and better than what she was doing. Now she helps spiritual entrepreneurs build a profitable and aligned business. She helps them get started, she helps them through the process, and she really helps them make it actually sustainable and fulfilling. I love this episode because Mal shares so many tips that are so actionable that any of us can do. We talk about visualizing what you want, holding space for your emotions to feel what you're actually feeling in your business, and also how to work on your mindset, because that is one of the hardest parts of business. That was my hardest part when I was starting my business, and that's a lot of entrepreneurs' biggest struggle, their mindset. So let's get right into this episode with Mallory Meyer. Thank you so much for joining me, Mal. I am so excited to have this conversation about mindset, energetics, all of those pieces. So welcome to the Employee to Boss podcast.
Thank you so much, Haley. I'm really looking forward to it. And I hope your audience will get a lot out of this conversation with my background and what I have to share.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to hear about your background. Why don't you start off with telling us who you are and how you got to where you are?
Absolutely. I'll try to kind of really distill this down for you as well. But ultimately, I came from a corporate background. I'm an HR professional in my past life, is how I like to kind of put it. And now I'm full-time in my spiritual business, a soulpreneur here. And it wasn't necessarily a very quick jump in some sense, but at the same token, I knew this had always been on my heart for many, many years. I have over 10 plus years in the corporate environment. And throughout that time period, it was always just this nudge, this calling that kept on coming forward for me to say, there's something greater outside of you here. And there wasn't a level of fulfillment that was truly invigorating in that sense, to really leap out of bed with a lot of energy. Yes, I was doing great work and really climbed up the corporate ladder, but the more I climbed, the less I felt fulfilled also. So I was just recognizing in ways where I was truly finding happiness. And I equally started to just dabble my toe into some other entrepreneurial ventures. And same with that, they weren't necessarily lighting my soul up. I would get some great success with it, but then I would just feel that resistance of showing up and continually wanting to grow it. So ultimately, with my background back in 2018, I went through a Reiki healing, and that was my first time ever receiving an energetic healing. And I didn't even quite recognize it at that point, but that was truly a spiritual pivotal point for me to embark on my own awakening journey. To really come back home to me is almost the way that I like to put it, and start to recognize those conditions and those layers that I could start to release. I had truly conformed at that point in time in the corporate world to this person. It was almost like living a double life. I had this other personality in my day-to-day with my friends, with my family. And then I was almost just putting on a mask for my 9-to-5. So through that whole, from 2018 forward, pretty much to 2019, starting to recognize more investment into the healing, my Reiki certifications, really diving deep into following those breadcrumbs and just kind of opening my eyes to all the signs that I was being gifted with. So it led me into more of the energetic side of things, which is the Akashic readings, mediumship, really opening up my channel to connect in with my galactic family, while simultaneously actually being called to hypnotherapy. And from there, where I was really drawn into hypnotherapy, I discovered life and success coaching. So I did this nice big bundle of a certification and ultimately became a mindset coach. So this is really where I started to see, how can I bring the two together? And I'm happy to dive into that a little bit more, but I used to kind of see them being mutually exclusive. And at the same time, once I really achieved going through my own rewiring of my mind and my brain, seeing how the two could come together and really just create the transformational shift at a quantum level.
What an incredible story. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
There's two things that really stood out in your story that I would love to talk about. And that's really, you had other side hustles or you had other businesses that you were going into, but you didn't feel that spark. And I think when we start our business and leave our 9 to 5 careers, we want it to like immediately work out, or we see ourselves as a failure almost like, oh, I left my paying job to go work for myself and I still don't love this. And so, what were some mindset adjustments that you had to do to accept, like, yeah, this one isn't going to work out, but I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to go back to my job. I'm going to try something else until it works.
Mm-hmm. Great question. It really came down to like recognizing all the feedback that I was receiving almost through each kind of trial and error process, and receiving that feedback, whether it was from like clients that I was working with, or whether it was my own inner feedback that was coming up to be like, this still doesn't feel fully in that truth and in my heart center, what it is that really, again, compels me to want to show up each and every day. And I guess like the other thing that I would add too is for myself, there was a big period of time, and I think this would really serve your audience, where I just wanted to leave. Like it was so grueling of a time and disheartening in my work that I was like, I just cannot do this. And I really had to shift my mindset to find the gratitude and the appreciation for where I was at that time. And just starting to do some simple acknowledgements every morning to say, I am being paid a salary right now, where I know many can struggle. And I still have this desire to want to build something, a side hustle at this point in time. And it's almost like to say, we need to move through the unsustainable to get to the sustainable. And really just accepting the gift that it was to have a recurring paycheck come in, to almost take that and invest in my business, invest in mentors to allow me to grow even further and almost go through this trial and error period where I wouldn't be in such scarcity, or wouldn't be such like squirrely energy to be like, I need. So that was one of the biggest shifts for me as well, was just starting to be in appreciation and gratitude while recognizing everything was just coming in as feedback to get me towards like my highest aligned path.
That's incredible. Yeah, I think that's a really good point where when you're not necessarily making money in your side hustle, you don't really want to invest in that help or that coaching, mentorship. But if you look at it in a way like, yes, I'm having money still coming in and I see I will be making money from my side hustle, I can invest this and make it back in tenfold or whatever it may be. And so that's a great mindset to have around it. The other part of your story that really stood out to me was you were seeing mindset and, the rest of your business kind of separate entities. And you said that you found a bundle membership or bundle mentorship program, was it?
Yeah, the certification that I went through was actually with Yes Supply Method. And so it was just someone actually guiding me to that as well, just to recognize you don't need to only do hypnotherapy. You can actually get this whole beautiful certification. And that was just through that program that was led by Reese Evans.
That's awesome. So there's so many programs out there. We can just quickly touch on this, but how did you come to find that one program and then figure out if that one was the right one for you?
There was someone I always find whenever we make a call to the universe in some ways, it delivers, whether that's in like a person giving us a message, or we just kind of preemptively, our phones listen to us, but they love to kind of just guide us into an advertisement of some sort. So there had been, I've always, for one, with my Reiki mastery, was guided to my healer. It was, again, putting that call out. I want to find a Reiki master at the time that I was living in Toronto that could really take me through and I could resonate with through my certifications. And funny enough, I went to an event and the speaker there was a Reiki master. It was for Lululemon. And I connected in with her at that point in time. And then similar with the hypnotherapy too, I had someone on my Instagram at the time that was very, very specific and niched into doing hypnotherapy sessions. And I just kind of inquired. I always think the biggest thing is to ask. We're so afraid to ask sometimes, and asking can get you so far. And she was the one that said, I have nothing but great things to say about this one program. And then lo and behold, too, Yes Apply is based out of Toronto. So it really landed with me too, because that's where my hometown is. Obviously, I'm out on the West Coast now, but it just really aligned up again and fit the bill for what it was that I was looking to kind of bring forward.
Awesome. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people, that's what holds them back from moving forward, having too many options. So, getting those recommendations, asking people that you like and trust for their recommendations is always helpful. So just asking for help. That's awesome. Okay. So that's your background. I would love to hear more about what you do now. I know you just came out with a course. And so tell us about your business that you currently have.
Yeah, of course. So simply put, I help spiritual entrepreneurs build a profitable and aligned business. So what that all entails, and especially with this new course, and again, part of the philosophy that I love to teach is being very specific around one offer when you get started. So you're also not burning yourself out, but it's the intention to build a high ticket premium transformational offer. Again, my background a little bit was moving out of those one-off $100 sessions to be able to step into like a thousands of dollar premium package here. And this is really how we can start to build that sustainable business. So for a year, up until November 2021, I had been facilitating a 6-month one-to-one program. It was coaching, mentorship, and it also included Reiki certification. Again, kind of bridging in everything with the energetics and the mindset to allow people who, again, were either feeling burnt out in their jobs, lost in how it was to bring forward their gifts into a premium offer, and just low self-worth in those ways of like not feeling confident enough to be visible and step into their power, truly illuminating that to allow you by the end of 6 months have that sustainable business. But I've also had near and dear to my heart a program, like an actual self-paced course and mastermind that I always wanted to bring forward. And so after a year of doing one-to-one work, learned a lot and highly, highly recommend for any new entrepreneur to really take that approach, because you can learn so much about what it is that you're teaching that's getting your clients the results. And so from there, I've just truly distilled down my highest level philosophies, teachings, what works, so you can step into an 8-week course and mastermind. Again, it's a hybrid because I love community. And again, we learn so much through community. So I hold weekly calls with the group. It's an evergreen program, so it kind of ebbs and flows depending on the timeline of people within it. But ultimately, there's 8 weeks where you move from truly coming back into the embodiment piece of who you need to be at a 6-figure level, and then coming into more of like the pragmatic business stuff, like an intuitive business strategy, the energetic alignment piece still, while bringing forward like lead generation and sales.
Awesome. I love what you said, where you started off with one-to-one coaching and really learned what worked, because a lot of people want to make tons of money right away. And when you do one-to-one, you definitely have like a cap that you get at, where you have as many one-to-one clients as you can physically take without losing your mind, right? And so once you do that, you're able to see the success, and then from there, go on and do group coaching or courses, whatever it may be. But I agree that one-to-one coaching definitely is a great way to start your business, because the other ones can be a little overwhelming from time to time, but one-to-one is very manageable, especially when you have your plan, strategies, all of that. So thanks for sharing that. I would love to talk about, one thing that you talk a lot about online and in your business is bringing those ideal clients to you like magnetically, without the stress and struggle of who's going to work with me next? How do I find the next person? Like always being on edge. How do you teach, or what do you teach your clients that brings them to them naturally?
Definitely. I definitely use that word a lot around like magnetizing. And I always love to use that word ease, because again, corporate, I was so deep into the masculine energy that reconnecting with the feminine has been so important. And especially within like a new paradigm of business, really feeling that it's like that 50-50 effort. We can actually lean on our business to support us and not always feel like we need to be at the forefront. But To really answer your question here, I want to kind of give it two pieces, one a little bit more pragmatic, and then one again with the energy and the mindset. So, one being just like the one-to-one offer, also knowing who your specific client is to be able to magnetize them in. And as much as I also had some resistance at first to be like, I want to serve all these individuals, I know I can help so many different people. It's really this aspect of when we're so broad, there's no one to work with in that sense. Like we need to really dial in how specific can we be to start out. And it's also with like the law of polarity there of like being so certain in who it is that we're working with, because just like up and down or like north and south, our clients are uncertain most of the time. So when we stand in like certainty of this is who I'm serving, this is how I'm serving them, that's where the magnetism piece really kind of falls into place. Along with just like one of the greatest pieces of feedback, not just for myself, but with clients that they too receive is around that intimacy. And like when you do know so deeply that this is like your soul mission, you're coming from your heart center, you're not concerned on you and you're just focused on them. Sometimes we can just get so wrapped up in our own world. This is where that intimacy, authenticity level can really start to shine. So with the embodiment piece and the energetic piece, I always love to invite in, it's done. Like every day I do my own mindset work and realignment, recoding, recalibration to come into that, to that level in that space vibrationally, to emit and radiate that frequency of it's done. I have all the clients I need. I'm fully booked. I'm at that 6-figure plus level. Some pieces are done. Some pieces obviously like still always having space to hold more clients, but definitely when I'm there already, it kind of just allows that magnetism to come in again, because we're already cultivating that state within us.
What do you do to get into that mindset? I know you said you do this every day, but what does that look like? Because for a lot of us, like even meditating seems impossible. And so like visualizing can be really hard, but what do you do to like get into that space?
There's a few different practices that I invite in. Like I would say for the audience, one practical tool that they can take forward is even emotional freedom technique, doing like an EFT tapping session in the morning to release some of those blockages, to release any kind of resistance that you might be holding on to. And again, calling it in the way that you want to show up and be. But for me, one of the things I also love is just like journaling. And I'm very kind of consistent in how I journal with looking at maybe some negative emotions and things that aren't working first and foremost in my day, and then moving it into like gratitude and appreciation. And so I've at least held space for myself to feel into things that might not be at the like highest level of what I'm seeking, while again shifting that quickly and then inviting in affirmations and like my purpose that I've been very clear about. And through that, there is some visualization that comes through where I can then almost allow my mindset to kind of reconfigure in that sense. There's also some self-coaching work, which is a little bit more detailed to explain, but it's really just starting to identify like what are the thoughts that I need to have in order to create my results. Because again, coming from the mindset side of things, every kind of thought feeling combo that we're bringing forward truly is creating the results in our reality. So that's part of it too.
Absolutely. And I think mindset coaching and having this mentality when you're first starting your business is so important. For me, when I first started my business, Espresso Podcast Production, I knew nothing about owning a business, right? I came from corporate. It was during COVID. My business, I always say, just kind of fell into my lap and I grew up from there. But the very first coach I ever invested in was actually a mindset coach, because my mindset was not at the point where I could grow my business. It wasn't at the point where I could think of new ideas or actually make action from those ideas without feeling overwhelmed. I felt like I had to accept all the clients that came my way, referrals, DMs, all of that, because I was like, oh, money. Yeah, definitely. But I got so burnt out doing that. It was just like, I never, ever thought I would be that burnt out in my whole life from accepting like clients who I thought were going to be great. But when I hired this mindset coach, that's when we really dove into these ideas of niching down and, doing your nightly journal and really like visualizing and thinking about where you want to be and acting as like you're already there. And so everything you just said, amazing, amazing tips that are so actionable. And I think every new business owner, any business owner who's burnt out, or any business owner in general should definitely be thinking in the mindset that they want to be in.
I love that. Even your experience that you had to move through and like recognizing too what was leading you to burnout. But truly that visualization piece, like I had a hard time at first painting that vision almost.
Mhm.
And it was really kind of getting into like, how is it that I'm feeling? What is again like that state of like, what would be the thoughts that I'm having? What am I seeing? What am I hearing around me? Because as we do this visualization more and more, and there's proven kind of science even behind it with athletes and how quickly you can get to your results when you invite in visualization, the affirmations help me almost drop in immediately, like especially when I wake up in the morning or even before going to bed, because that's when our subconscious is most valuable. And trusting again, like our subconscious also doesn't know the difference between real or imagined. So when we actually cultivate through an affirmation, like this state of being and feeling that, it's almost again acting as if the law of reversibility of bringing that forward for you. And then also knowing too, like our mind, we're telling it that we're not quite there yet. So it keeps us motivated as well towards our goal. So definitely an important piece while kind of still clearing your whole vessel is like the way that I always like to call our mind, our body. Like obviously our vessel wants to be clear and pure every day, grounded and protected. So that's part of that mindset, energetic work that I love to invite in the morning.
That's awesome that you do it like first thing in the morning to set your day off right.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I would love to talk a little bit more about really how the audience can think of themselves as, you know, I don't know the words you would use to say this, but think of themselves as a magnet to those clients. Like, what are some actionable steps there, even some success stories that your clients have had after going from that masculine chasing, energy that corporate world is to
Mm-hmm.
accepting their ideal audience or their ideal clients? I would love to hear a little bit more about that too.
For sure. And I would love to kind of leverage in a little bit more about what you said about how you were also like accepting referrals and then just taking because it was like money coming in.
Mhm.
But when we get so specific around who it is that we're serving, we can also stand more in that power to be like, this isn't going to be a good fit. Like, this is going to be a really challenging client. And obviously, starting to see that through no's, both that we receive from clients and no's that we may give, we're opening space and we're creating space for more aligned clients to come in. So just holding that trust and holding that deep belief. And I think one of the biggest things too is just like, for one, with clients and like how to magnetize them is yes, showing up and creating that intimacy and knowing that it doesn't need to all be done before you can even start taking that action. Like more so than anything, especially when people come to work with me, we're just starting to build out their offer. Some of them, yes, already have an offer and we're rejigging things, but most of the time, I would say 60% of the people are still doing those one off sessions. They have a small following. They're just trying to get this started. And so for that first month, I almost kind of speak to it as let's showcase your personality. Like, let's just get you talking about what it is that you love to talk about, that you're so knowledgeable about without any expectation. It's almost like getting in that mindset too of the unconditional love that you have towards the goal that you're achieving. It's not to say that you're going to give up if in 3 months you haven't hit it. It's just knowing and trusting that if it happens in 6, you're still going to be in love with exactly what it is that you're doing. And so it's also kind of coming into that acceptance of not chasing a timeline and just holding that space, because it's almost as if, again, life being a paradox that it is, when we don't need something, a lot of the times it will just come. But most of the time, again, starting out, we're so fixated on the need to have something. And just even sharing like a very personal story about that. When I was leaving corporate, I had this need of I wanted 4 clients full time on my 6-month program to be able to leave. And it got to that point where physical manifestations were coming up in my body to say, we're shutting you down. You can't keep on with this corporate job. So I ultimately left earlier than my expected timeline, earlier than the expectation of having more full-time clients. But the week I resigned, 3 new clients came in. And it was, again, almost getting back into like that belief energy of like, I know so truly this is my calling and I'm going to stay dedicated to it regardless. Like, I'm going to take courageous action. I'm going to persevere. I know there's ebbs and flows, and almost having that emotional resiliency through it and trust that it's going to work. I don't need to change things outside of me, like the offer, if I'm not getting traction 1 month, really, really the discipline and having that faith and discipline. So from an actionable side of things, it was really staying consistent to a schedule. Again, consistency, persevering even through the harder times, the harder days, constraining myself in building a business with like 2 hours a day when I was in my 9 to 5. So really setting up time in my calendar. Again, this goes into like Parkinson's law, which if we don't have something scheduled, we'll just kind of let that go and go and go. And then obviously like the belief work and really just almost slowing down to go fast. And slowing down is smooth and smooth is fast. And there's a great quote even from the US Navy about that. Slow is smooth, the smooth is fast. And it really kind of set the foundation for my business too, with understanding that there was no rush. I'm here, I'm showing up, I'm making great connections. Like connecting and engaging are so key over kind of getting caught in the busy work that so many starting out feel like they need to do, like having that offer ready, having the website ready, and so on and so forth. That can go on and on. So I really, with my clients, focus immediately on like, let's take messy action and get you talking to people. We need you to start meeting people. The belief work and nurturing and meeting people are like fundamental. So I hope that answers the question. I know I went on a little bit of a tangent there.
No, that was great. I work with podcasters, so I do podcast production. I have courses that help podcasters set up their podcasts. And I see a lot of them like being so hesitant about putting out their first episode because they don't have everything done already, or they don't have every like mindset piece in line with, oh yes, I'm going to show up every week. I'm going to start this podcast. I'm going to do all the necessary things to do it. Or on the other side, one of my clients, she wanted to do like 7 things for each episode, like graphics. She wanted to do blog posts. She wanted to do emails, like all these things that held her back for so long from actually just starting. She has so many listeners now. Her podcast is so successful, but it took her just like the action of doing it to be able to see those results. And so I totally understand that, where, you know, you weren't getting those clients in the very beginning that you wanted. And then you were just like stressed out, like, oh, where am I going to get my 4 clients? Where am I going to get my 4 people? And then when you finally like heard your body and accepted the fact that you were going to leave your 9 to 5, then they came for you. Then they were attracted to you because you opened up and you had that space to accept them, you know, that more time and everything. So I love that story. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and congratulations to you and your client too. That's phenomenal to hear.
Yeah.
Because definitely, like, we need to do, and we can get so caught in like that, the whole like monkey mind aspect too, where it wants to lead us into other problems where everything is just fine. And it truly is just taking that action.
It really is just taking that action. So I would love to hear about some, you know, how you work with your clients, and then also like who your clients are.
Yeah, definitely. So how I work with them is really just through, like, as we are right now on Zoom. But again, my back-end program right now, just with the new launch of my 8-week course in Mastermind, is the back end is the 6-month coaching, mentorship, and still Reiki certification. It's kind of individualized and a very unique transformational journey, but we do hold bi-weekly calls in that program through Zoom. And then you also receive energetic healings and of course the Reiki certification in between that all. But with this 8-week course in Mastermind, it is allowing individuals to have a little bit more of like that weekly drip content come through for them to move through, not feeling overwhelmed, in a way that's, again, progressing them forward, and again, getting them out and being visible while holding weekly calls through that. And most of the time right now, I kind of am working with individuals that are either between the two, because in 6 months, you get access to my Frequency Business Mastery School program. So it's a mix between the two, to be honest, right now, of individuals that are long term, some a little bit shorter term at the front end. And those that I'm working with, I use the word spiritual entrepreneurs because to me, it really encapsulates a lot of different individuals and those that I have served in the past, such as business coaches that have, again, an inkling and an understanding of spirituality, however that may look like to them. Maybe they are also Reiki healers, or maybe they are just kind of very open to mindfulness and approaching that into their work and wanting to invite in more energetics. Mindset coaches are also spiritual entrepreneurs, but more so than not, again, a big kind of handful of clients that I work with are those in 9 to 5 jobs, they're feeling burnt out, very similar to my story of feeling that calling and feeling that nudge and just uncertain how to bring forward their gifts. So they could be already doing just those energetic healings or doing Reiki or Akashic record mediumship one-off, and they want to expand themselves. And they also, again, know that there's more through their journey that they can share to empower and elevate the lives of others to have that impact. Mothers are a huge audience of mine, just because I find when we talk about identity and like really reconnecting with who it is that you are again, they love to come forward and do this work again to stand in their power in a way that's really shifting, to me, in some sense, like generations to come, healing a lot of like the ancestral lineage and really kind of saying no more of like working for someone else, or really empowering their children to see a different way of being and how to call in like abundance and how to be a role model. So I'm really loving also working with those individuals, but take it quote unquote spiritual entrepreneurs.
Awesome. That's really cool. I love how you attract like such a specific person, but so many different people at the same time, right? So I love that for you. Is there anything else that you would like to share on this podcast?
I wouldn't say anything specifically, just in like, if you feel that nudge and calling, like I always love to say, if we have a vision or if we have something that we've always felt, depending how you receive your intuitive messages coming forward, it's been planted and seeded there for a reason. So don't second guess it. Like, know so deeply if you're feeling called to do something, the universe is telling you it is sitting there just out in your timeline. Let's collapse that down and bring it to you quicker. So with that too, there's also a free masterclass. I know in the show notes you're going to share my Instagram, but on my Instagram right now, I have a free recorded masterclass around activating your intuition and reconnecting with the divine feminine. Again, more specific to those that are in the corporate world that haven't really tapped into that necessarily as much as they would love to. So I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. Thank you. And so where can people find you? Where can people sign up for your course or one-on-one with you?
Yeah, so you can find me. I really am kind of living and breathing out in Instagram land. So that's where I'm at mal.meyer. And then my website is www.whitewolfreiki.ca, where you can not only find more information about the course, I have free clarity calls. So if in any way you just want to mutually see if this could be a great fit for you, really would invite you in to do that. And then I actually have some limited kind of sessions that I hold on a monthly basis for still energetic healing. So I call them quantum energy healing sessions or the Akashic soul readings. Again, all kind of within my website, as well as my Reiki certifications for 2022 coming up.
Awesome. So that will all be in the show notes. I love to end every single episode off with you sharing 3 actionable tips that the audience can follow and that they can start with today.
I would have to say, for one, just like trusting in yourself and being visible, like having that tip of like just showing up, whatever that may be today, and like putting out a post. If you want to create a business, I'll kind of focus in on that, but share what's on your heart. Share your story. Storytelling is so impactful in marketing. So again, don't feel like you need to be limited or feel like you're going to be judged because there's one person out there that needs your support. So really kind of show up for them. Another actionable tip I would say is even just starting to like open up conversations with individuals that you have had a following with, because so often we don't necessarily do a lot of outreach. I find we wait for the inbound messages to come, and you'd be really pleasantly surprised on like what you can learn just about someone. Again, not having an intention to say enroll in my business or get started. And then on the other end of things, I would just say for someone that really is in the corporate world, looking again at the side hustle, really think about how much time do you think that you need to start your business, when you can really bring it down to like the essential things that you need to do to get it started. Because so often one of the things that's limiting us is like, I don't have the time. There's no way that I can start this business because I just don't have the time. And when we actually look at how much time we spend in a day and where we're giving that time and energy, truly, again, the way that I love to kind of teach people is you can do it in 2 hours a day. So just look and evaluate where you're at right now, because once we evaluate, we can see where we can start to go.
Thank you so much for sharing those tips. I've loved this episode because I feel like our audiences just align so well. You know, people want to leave their 9 to 5, but they're not really sure how, or they're, overwhelmed with it. So definitely go and find Mal on Instagram. Everything will be in the show notes. This has been such a good conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and courses, please check out espressopodcastproduction.com.